Hi guys, welcome back to this new mindful nutrition video with me, Eleonora. So today's video is very practical because just as the word itself says, it's a video where we'll show you lots of recipes. Some are trendy, others are super quick, others are just practical, simply practical recipes that you can make not only quickly but also with ingredients that are really easy to find. And I'll say the recipe and Eli will tell me why this recipe is good or not good. Or maybe it's fine, but maybe in the evening we don't eat more carbs, basically. Eli will give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down of these recipes that I'm going to tell her. So basically we have 4 first courses, then we have 4 sandwiches, sandwich bagel, basically sandwiches, and then we have 2 recipes that are a bit trendier and very tempting with special touches. So let's start with the first courses. The first dish we're going to look at is the classic spaghetti with garlic and chili pepper. The one made really quickly, super fast.
In a flash, which we usually make at midnight. At midnight, when we get a little hungry, at midnight we try to avoid it. But it's a dish that, even though it's simple, because it's really one of those dishes we've always cooked, especially when the fridge is empty, it can be quite balanced. Or rather, it's definitely missing the protein portion. We know that, but we've learned over the years that if we redistribute it in other meals, maybe starting from breakfast or dinner or simply in a snack, we can still meet our nutritional needs. So we don't necessarily have to add it at lunch. It's a dish that's preferably included at lunch. It's a balanced dish. Why? Because it doesn't give us a high glycemic index from the carbohydrates, since there's oil and all the fats that slow down digestion, which allow us to have a more gradual distribution of sugars and therefore less hunger in the afternoon. Chili pepper is a stimulant. So I always remind you not to overdo it. There are people who really use massive amounts of it because it could cause us gastric problems or at least gastric hypersensitivity. But it can also be great for adding flavor, and it's also great as a stimulant, so it's fine.
It's fine.
And as we were saying, in this case, we just need to be careful to balance the amount of carbohydrates. So according to our needs, according to our portion, maybe pairing it with a plate of vegetables, since there are only carbohydrates and fats.
Okay, and don't overdo it maybe. I mean, don't use tons of oil.
And don't use tons of oil, exactly. The thing about oil is a fat. Let's remember that every gram of fat has 9 kilocalories, so it's the most caloric nutrient among those we have available. And so the amount of oil is definitely fundamental, so we need to moderate it, but always balance it according to our needs.
And let's remember that between cooked oil and raw oil, in terms of calories, there's no difference, because sometimes people say, but it's raw. But it's the same. Raw, cooked, warm, it's all the same.
The only problem with sauteed oil is the change in the structure of the oil. So it can become harder to digest, heavier, it can produce toxic substances, and that's what makes digestion more difficult for us. But garlic, oil, and chili pepper are just a quick improvised thing.
Yes, exactly. Second recipe, a quick one, was student pasta, tuna pasta, but not a complicated tuna pasta where I have to saute garlic, oil, and tuna. No, I open the can of tuna in olive oil, drain the oil, meanwhile I boil the pasta and mix everything together cold. So hot pasta into the tuna, and if we want, we can add a bit of parsley.
A couple of cherry tomatoes.
A couple of cherry tomatoes, just 2, otherwise it becomes too much. That's how it is.
Exactly. I call it student or athlete's pasta. So
of people in general, I think.
Everyone who finishes at the gym. Oh my gosh, what do I eat now? 5 minutes before going back to work? It's still a very balanced dish. It's a dish where we have a protein portion. Let's remember that tuna is considered a fatty fish, especially when it's canned or in a jar. Anyway, it's a food we shouldn't overuse, but we can include it in our weekly diet. So it's quick with no cooking needed. So even in this case, we're not changing the proteins or the fats. It's balanced because we have carbohydrates from the pasta, tuna for protein, and a bit of oil for fats. Great, as we were saying, if we want to add a couple of cherry tomatoes or another type of vegetable,
A bit of arugula, a bit of arugula. I think it works well.
Exactly. We don't even need to cut it.
Exactly. Do it like this with your hands.
In this case, we also have the fiber content, so it's perfectly balanced. And as we said, something to include once a week when we're extremely busy. It's perfect.
It can be done. So it's approved. Then another recipe is rice, potatoes, peas with a drizzle of oil. But it's not something difficult to make. We boil the rice, we boil the potatoes, we boil the peas, and we mix everything together with a nice drizzle of oil. What about this dish?
Here, I would say next. Absolutely not. So if before they could find small variations, okay, that's fine. Okay, balanced. In this case, absolutely not. No offense to those in southern Italy where they have pasta with provola and potatoes instead of pasta, rice, and peas, even in the north. Exactly. So it's a very good combination from the point of view of protein balance. Because let's always remember that carbohydrates, so cereals and legumes, have different proteins and they complement each other well, but at the same time, they also have a lot of carbohydrates. In this case, we're also adding potatoes, and let's also consider that rice, even basmati or white rice, still has a high glycemic index. Potatoes have a very high glycemic index, and among legumes, peas rank highest.
Perfect.
So we get a simultaneous sugar spike that makes us feel tired, unable to properly manage these carbohydrates in our metabolism, and as a result, we accumulate body fat. After a dish like that, the only thing we can do is run a marathon or recover from a marathon.
After that dish, the couch? No.
It would take us to the couch because, in fact, it gives us this very high glycemic spike. But, it could still be a dish that's too unbalanced. For all those people who do endurance activities for a long time and at a high pace and therefore really need a significant load of carbohydrates. But even in this case, associated with a race moment before or after the race, not for recovery, absolutely not in everyday life.
So we found a dish that's a no-go, but let's move on to the last recipe. This one is really good. It's tagliatelle with porcini mushrooms. So our idea is oil, garlic, and dried porcini mushrooms rehydrated with a little water. You rehydrate them with a little water, let them soften in a pan over low heat with the lid on, and separately you cook the tagliatelle. Then you mix everything together with a bit of parsley. And yes, that's it. That's all there is to it.
This is a Sunday recipe, so it's delicious.
On Sundays, it's usually sausage and cream, just so you know.
Light version.
Grandma would add sausage and cream.
Light version. But it's not a dish to completely reject. Why? Because egg pasta is still quite a protein-rich pasta. So if we portion it well, as always, it's a food we can include in our weekly diet. Plus, it's a pasta that isn't stuffed, so it doesn't have extra calories from the meat in capelletti or anything else. Basically ricotta or something else, so it's still a simple egg pasta. Porcini mushrooms, especially the dried ones, have a small amount of protein, which helps balance out the egg in the dough. And then, in this case too, we also have the opportunity to add some vegetables as a side dish. So if we have to think about a simple pasta, this one is better than plain pasta.
Yes, because egg pasta has more protein inside compared to dry pasta. And also in terms of carbohydrates, egg pasta has fewer than dry pasta.
Yes, exactly, because there's this balance with the protein. So compared to a plain pasta dish, it's definitely more filling, more flavorful, because in this case we're not taking anything away from the taste. And as I was saying, it's also a lighter version for a Sunday dish.
Of course, I really love porcini mushrooms, dried ones. They're delicious. I really like them a lot.
Very tasty, yes.
Sandwiches then.
Here we get to the heart of it.
Ah yes, now this is where I want you. So the sandwich with Philadelphia, salmon and avocado can be a sandwich or a bagel. Nowadays there are about 250 different types of bread on the market, so let's just say sandwich to generalize. This Philadelphia salmon and avocado combo is trendy and Instagram worthy.
Very Instagrammable, yes.
Do we like it or not?
We like it.
We like it.
So we like it with some attention. So we like it, first of all, because it's a totally complete dish. So we have fish with omega-3, we have good fats from the avocado, and we have a spreadable cheese that we mainly use to add creaminess. But even in this case, Philadelphia or any kind of spreadable cheese, we can find them with different nutritional values, so we'll pay attention to that as well. Okay, the bread roll as a carbohydrate is usually not too much. We usually have
Yes, about 50.
about 50 grams makes it a complete high-protein dish. In this case, should we pay attention to the fats? Because Philadelphia or spreadable cheese, salmon, and avocado are all fatty foods.
All fat.
So we need to be careful to portion these foods properly, to choose and select foods that are lower in fat, so light options. Sorry for using that term, though I dislike it. So maybe consider a higher quality salmon, like Alaskan salmon, which actually has less fat, and maybe choose a light spreadable cheese. In fact, there are many types with really low fat levels.
Yes, leaner, medium lean, very lean.
And even in this case, maybe instead of slicing the avocado thick, we can make a little cream out of it.
This way you use less of it.
Exactly, we use less.
About 30, maybe 40 grams.
Exactly, or we just make really thin slices if we really like that sliced effect.
Yes, a little bit chewy.
Exactly, yes, and it's never really crunchy, it's a bit soft, but it still gives us that fresh feeling, so it becomes a nice balance. So just pay attention to the fat content in this case.
Exactly. Yes, like Eli says, even in a recipe like this, which might seem like, no, you just do it this way. No, there are actually 650,000 types of Philadelphia. With smoked salmon, there's one with 12 grams of fat, and another, I discussed this with Eli earlier. Alaskan salmon is the one, I'm telling you now, it's the most expensive one, and you can only find it smoked. But if you read the nutritional values, it has only 1% fat and it's delicious. So it's perfect, for example, in a recipe like this where everything else is fatty. Then for the second sandwich, it's hamburger, egg, cheese slice, lettuce, and tomato. So I want to make at home the classic hamburger I would eat at a big chain, which we know can't really be done because I'm making it at home.
Okay, so even in this case, it's a maybe. Why? Because the egg, the lettuce, and the tomato are great. Proteins, good fat content, and good fiber content, so that's good. When it comes to processed cheese slices or melted cheese, I always have a bit of trouble accepting them because even if they're good quality, they're still processed industrial products that are very high in fat. So we really need to be careful with these products, but we could replace it with a delicious slice of fresh cheese.
Actually, I wanted to ask if we could use a slice of something else instead of the processed cheese slice, whatever the type.
Any kind of cheese too.
Fontina
or something else. We always go a bit higher with saturated fats because eggs and cheeses, especially aged ones, have higher saturated fats. But if we manage to balance it in the other meal with plant-based products like legumes instead of white fish, that's perfectly fine. We can accept it too, but just always pay attention to all the ingredients.
Okay, perfect. So let's move on to another sandwich, which is the omelet sandwich. Or scrambled eggs. Let's say egg, salt, and pepper, so it's not like we put a ton of oil in there either. It's very simple. Maybe we just grease the pan with a little oil and then dab it eggs, salt, and pepper.
Good, a complete meal. If we add a slice of lettuce, it's a proper lunch. It's the typical lunch that our grandparents used to take to the construction sites. It's very filling, so naturally it's a food. Let's remember that the egg is a filling food, rich in iron, rich in fats, but also rich in high quality proteins. So in this case, we can really use it as a lunch, especially when we're doing physical activity or doing a job that involves movement. So definitely not the usual 8 hours in the office sitting at a desk because it might be a bit too high in calories, but in an active lifestyle, it can work.
We could add some arugula leaves in the middle. They pair well with it.
Actually, it can be very useful even on those days when we decide to go trekking and maybe we don't want to fall back on the usual cold cuts. And so...
Sure, instead of saying I'll take a packed lunch with me, I'll have it with cold cuts. Since cold cuts are processed, let's use eggs instead.
We can add an egg or do the same with a hard-boiled egg.
Yes, maybe the sandwich with hard-boiled egg and lettuce. Perfect.
Also, I like the sandwich with the egg. Scrambled. Eggs in any way. So, last sandwich. This one is a bit more difficult. Let's see then. A sandwich with, no, it's easy, chickpea cream. So we take the chickpeas, the ones from the can, we drain them, we rinse them like Eli taught us, we blend them, make a cream, and then we add some sun-dried tomatoes. So chickpea cream and sun-dried tomatoes. Very simple. A vegan sandwich.
Exactly, vegan. So really everyone can eat it, and it has plant-based proteins. So it's also a version where we're not always rich in saturated fats. And above all, it's very tasty because the chickpea cream together with the sun-dried tomato gives us a big boost of flavor. So it's really, really good. In this case, I also recommend considering whole grain breads or those with seeds or cereals.
Yeah, that works well.
That way we also get the crunchy part, which we might not have with plain bread.
Yeah, it's all mushy with this chickpea sauce.
Exactly. And the only thing to watch out for is if the cherry tomatoes are in oil.
I think so, in oil, well drained and mashed.
Dry them well with some paper towels. But it's really, really good, yes.
Well, approved. So the last two recipes are a bit trendy, a bit like that. So the first one is a porridge, but savory. It's a rather unique recipe. So oat flakes cooked in hot water and tomato sauce, which makes them a bit colorful like this.
With a pinkish color.
Exactly. It turns a bit pinkish, so this is the porridge. And all of it, this savory porridge, is topped with sautéed champignon mushrooms. Without oil and cherry tomatoes cooked in the air fryer with a bit of salt, pepper, and oregano, which go really well together, a little raw olive oil, and a bit of grana cheese. This sandwich has a bit of everything. Good.
This dish, this porridge, has two versions, a breakfast version and a lunch version.
Okay.
Okay, why? Because first of all, it's savory. So we don't always have the sweet version of the plant-based drink with oats, which is usually often used in the morning. Remember, it's a great option for savory lovers too. Let's remember that oat flakes are a food with a very low glycemic index, very filling because this porridge also becomes creamy, so it's satisfying. They also give us a good supply from a nutritional point of view. Let's remember that oats were initially used as food for horses precisely because they are very nutritious. So let's remember that on a busy day, on a day when we have a lot to do, it could be very useful, but it has a low glycemic index. It fills us up and keeps us satisfied all afternoon. Also, it's easy and has a lot of flavor from the mushrooms and from these sun-dried tomatoes. By now, almost all of us have an air fryer, so in a very quick and short amount of time, we can also get that slightly crispy part.
Of course, of course.
Okay, so it's also great as a main dish for lunch.
A little bit of grana cheese. Let's put 2 shavings of grana on top like this.
Also a bit of minerals, calcium, and vitamins, which are always good for you.
Then, in my opinion, I'll prepare this now. I'll try it. It's very tasty, in my opinion.
Especially during the winter, when we don't want the usual rice or the usual traditional pasta. It can be a great soup to have. A cream, I would call it a cream.
Cream, exactly, because it won't be brothy. It's something rather, yes, not compact.
No, it's not compact, it's creamy.
Anyway, you got it. Last recipe. This is a recipe that's not trendy, but we put it in the trendy recipe category anyway. Let's leave it there. It's rice pudding. I don't know if you've ever tried it. This is the savory version. You can also make a sweet one. Rice pudding with sugar by adding sugar. In this case, it's rice cooked in 50% water and 50% milk. If we want to do it right, we don't use whole milk, maybe just partially skimmed milk.
Yes, or some plant-based drinks.
Or some plant-based drinks. Of course, we add a little bit of salt and that's it. This is a very simple recipe. In the end, we can add a bit of grana cheese and some lemon zest to give it that extra touch. It's simple. Rice is cooked in both water and milk. Yes or no?
Yes. And let's always remember to be careful, especially if there are milk intolerances, because in that case, we should use a plant-based drink. But rice is a gluten-free cereal, So it's also suitable for all those people who can't tolerate gluten. It's a food, in any case, that can also be used a lot during periods of recovery, so when we have gastrointestinal problems. We made an entire video about the properties of rice and the substances that actually improve the regeneration of the intestinal mucosa. So it's definitely a food to include in your diet. And in this case too, we can have the savory version, which can be used both for breakfast and for lunch.
Here's the only thing about milk when cooking. Always keep the temperatures low because the proteins in milk can still undergo changes and become harder to digest.
So always keep the cooking slow, or in any case, first cook the rice in the first part with water, and then at the end, mix it with the milk in the last 10 minutes.
So do a little bit at a time, I get it. And maybe let's avoid using whole milk too.
Yes, let's avoid whole milk because it can be harder to digest with a higher fat content. So in any case, partially skimmed milk, or not skimmed, but partially skimmed, is better.
Perfect. So guys, we've also given you lots of recipes. Oh my gosh, that's wonderful. So I really hope you'll try them out and let us know in the comments below how they turned out, because we're really curious. We've eaten some of them ourselves, maybe not all, but as ideas they really inspire us. So if you have any other recipes to suggest, why not? We'll make another video about practical recipes. So with Eli, we send you a big kiss and we'll see you in the next video.
See you in the next video. Bye.